Can We Be? Part 3. A fanfiction based on the Miraculous Ladybug series. Someone in the distance. Someone she recognized but couldn't identify. Running towards them, she came to the edge of the building roof. She had to jump to the other side before they disappeared. The distance was quite easy to cross, so she went for it. But the roof moved away, leaving her an inch from landing. She fell and let out a seemingly ear-piercing cry, but her throat barely let out a croak when her eyes shot open, heart galloping and her vision blurry. She dashed her eyes to her left and right, gripping the bedding she could see. She was safe. Slowly sitting up, Marinette placed a hand on her thunder-drumming chest, slow, deep breaths bringing her pulse to a steady. She couldn't remember falling asleep. After an excruciating walk from school this afternoon, she'd made it to the bakery. Climbing up to her room without a word, Marinette had fallen face first onto her bed, and now, looking at her phone next to her, it was 2 a.m. Such inconvenient timing, so she got up, opening the door to her balcony and pulling herself up. She let the air push its way into her lungs, trying to keep her thoughts at bay. Adrien.
Feeling better?
Sorry, Tiki. Did I wake you up? She said, her voice apologetic.
It's all right.
Marinette's thoughts began spiraling again. This week had been such a backbreaker, and honestly, she just wanted to get away from all of it, at least for a few hours. There was only one way in which she knew how to do just that. Tiki, spots on! She heard a familiar grunt and a bell behind her, followed by footsteps.
I thought it was my turn to patrol today.
Yeah, it is. I just wanted some air. Ladybug was atop the Eiffel Tower, the one place she knew would be hidden enough for the night. Yet, Shat managed to find her.
I see. Does my lady mind some company?
I thought you were meant to be patrolling. His face grew into a pout like a whining cat.
I have been for the past 2 hours. I think I deserve a nice break. And with you would be so much better of a break.
She gave in. All right. Here, sit down with me, she said, dusting and patting the space next to her.
Why, thank you, milady,
he said, giving a gracious bow. The cool air invaded her senses. Taking in a deep breath, she tilted her head up to the sky. She'd hoped to see the stars, but it was gray. The gentle clouds more like monsters spitting white fire. It was terrifyingly beautiful. Despite the cold breeze, however, Ladybug could feel the heat radiating from Shat's spandex suit. His familiar warmth was comforting. Part of her senses begged her to move closer to him, but of course she did not. How could she?
Ladybug,
can I ask you something? His words broke her out of her gaze at the flashes of light.
Mm-hmm.
About that boy, Adrien. He was looking down at his palm, fidgeting with the lines that the spandex traced over. Why do you like him?
Huh?
Sorry, it's just...
I saw you two together last week, and I guess I just got curious.
You saw us? How? When had he managed to spot them together?
Does it really matter?
Shat! She whined, aching for an explanation.
Well, I had, come out for some air myself. That's when I saw you.
Oh,
I mean, it's not a big deal, right?
He said, before she could give any other sort of verbal response.
This won't give me any clue about your identity, since many girls like him.
He had a point. All girls swooned over him. Except Alia, of course. Champ. Sure, I guess so. The thought didn't put her mind to rest. Her feelings for Adrien were meant to be secret. But then again, she could trust Chat Noir. He was a good person, even though he did not go through any trouble of keeping his feelings to himself.
So?
So what?
Why do you like him?
He really wanted to know, didn't he? Silly cat. Why do you want to know, kitty?
I don't know. Curiosity, concern, disbelief, perplexity. Take your pick.
What are you talking about?
Nothing. I just find it slightly odd.
His voice was hesitant and forced. Odd?
Yeah. Like, he's nothing but a pretty boy with a facade.
He was quick to continue.
I mean, all that he does is absolutely full of disguises and lies, don't you think?
Shat. His voice became playful.
I mean, what even qualifies him as someone to admire, especially by you? Also, when did you meet him to start liking him?
Shat, enough! You have no right or authority to say any of that. But no! Regardless of that, he's a kind, compassionate boy who puts others before himself. I've seen it. He's an amazing person. He's beautiful, in more ways than you think. Confusion and uncertainty played along his face, but he said nothing to oppose her.
Milady, I'm sorry, I was only...
It's fine. She looked away, feeling almost attacked for her feelings.
You really like him that much, huh?
He said, sounding almost defeated. Yeah, I guess so. As put off as she was by Shat's comment, it made her realize that this wasn't as simple as just trying to get over someone she liked. It was way more complicated, and with this concealed identity situation, she was anything but able. This whole ordeal was like tangled thread, the knots too small and too tight to undo. Any kind of relationship with Adrien behind her mask was a bad idea. If anything happened and she got exposed, what would she do? Would she be able to give up her Miraculous? If she had no choice, sure, but this would be entirely her fault. She would give her earrings in and put Paris in danger until the next Ladybug could be chosen. Just enough time for Hawkmoth to throw an unexpected blow. She couldn't allow that. She was Ladybug, and she wouldn't put Paris in danger for anything. Right? They both lay there for a while. Ladybug had lost track of time. The clouds grew ever gray, stronger and stronger with every passing minute. And she'd let her mind wind and curl with them, detaching herself for the first time in days. Shat had hummed a melody every now and then, which hadn't broken her attention but added to her zen. It was a raindrop now that sent a cold prick to her nose which broke her off her mindless dreaming. Oh, let's go, Shat. We'll get soaked otherwise.
Come on. My ladybug surely isn't afraid of the rain.
She let out a chuckle. Of course not, you silly cat. I'd just rather not get wet. She turned around, about to make her way to one of the lower floors of the tower, when she felt a hand clasp onto hers and pull her back. Chat Noir wore his signature smirk, only this one had the twinkle of a child. A child with excitement shooting through the roof. Chat, what on earth are you... Before she could register what he was doing, Shat had an arm around her waist, pulling her closer to him and extending his baton to the ground. Leaping onto it, with his toes the only contact to the metal, he placed her onto his thigh without letting go. And, without any warning, the baton began to shrink, and Ladybug felt the unnatural clench in her stomach getting worse the faster they went down. She could never get used to this. Unlike the pendulum motion of her swing, this kind of drop and having to deliberately defy gravity when needed rather than rely on it felt foreign to her. Once they'd reached the ground, she jumped off him hastily. Hastier than she'd wanted. Shat, we need to... The rain began pouring more brutally, drowning any and all sounds that were audible prior. She took Shat's arm and dragged him to the closest shelter and let out a breath of relief. But she hadn't fully let it out before Shat ran back into the stormy weather. The rain grew more and more rough and unsteady, and Ladybug's calls to Shat seemed to dissipate. But his hearty laugh withstood, its power reaching her ears.
Come on, LB,
he said, whipping around with the biggest boyish grin she'd ever seen on anyone, his hand outstretched. Shat, this is insane!
Exactly!
He finished off with a chuckle. She felt a giddiness grow inside her, his contagious giddiness. An excitement long overdue, she stepped out. By her second step, she was already drenched and cold, but she kept walking towards Shat and took his hand. She felt an immediate warmth engulf her as he pulled her in closer to him. He was just so warm. Always.
Dance with me!
He didn't let her protest. Placing his arm around her waist and changing the grip he'd already had on her hand, he took a step back, leading her to follow. His movements seemed to follow her, yet he led her to where he wanted. Had he taken dancing lessons before? His strides were perfection all the way as he glided through the puddles. She began to wonder what guided his steps and had the question at the tip of her tongue when she realized. The rain. He was dancing to the rhythm of the rain, the crescendo and decrescendo of the roar. It wasn't as even as it should have been, but he was able to anticipate when it would swell and when it would wane. She stared at his face in awe. He had his eyes closed, his cat ears twitching as they seemed to draw the sound in. How?
You just need to focus, he said,
his eyes still closed. There was a short pause before he began to speak again. It's called rubato, where there is no sense of rhythm or tempo in the music, but it flows anyway. Rubato. The word echoed in her head as she noticed the way he accented his steps to the music. Now she could hear it too. She wondered how she couldn't hear it before. But now there was nothing else she could hear. This is amazing, Shat, Ladybug said, her heartbeat quickening. Shat opened his eyes, the virescent glow ever vibrant despite the misty rain surrounding them. He looked down at her. She had the urge to look away, but couldn't. His gaze felt different, captivating, binding. It also felt familiar, too familiar. Deja vu struck her, dull and vague, but piercing. She couldn't remember, even with the desperation she had for an answer. What was this? Ladybug? She couldn't answer. She felt tongue-tied, frozen in place. She couldn't even blink. She felt the heat from his suit go up as he came closer. She could tell he was waiting for her to push him away, and she wanted to. But her limbs felt detached from her mind, reflexes gone and confusion clouding her thoughts. Ladybug. He uttered her name one last time before pulling her forward, hand gently caressing her face and guiding it to his. Did she want this? No, but did she want to stop? Thank you guys so much for listening. This was part 3 of Can We Be, a fanfiction based on the Miraculous Ladybug series. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and comment down below your thoughts and suggestions if you have them. If you'd like to stay tuned for future videos, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to be notified every time I post. Until the next time.